Greetings, fellow English-speaking masters. I am the omniscient voice inside your head telling you to spend more Saint Quartz. And here is a list I have prepared informing you on the next 10 servants you will be spending all of those quartz on over the course of 2018. They have been ordered according to many different important factors, with the greatest of all being how important they will be to obtain. How scarce will these servants be? How great are they at performing? And after combing through the 60-plus upcoming servants, I have done everything in my power to give you the information that will influence you into saving and spending lots of money this year. So, start budgeting your savings as I count down for you the top 10 new servants you should look forward to in 2018 North American server. Number 10. Assassin, Ryougi Shiki. And Saber, Ryougi Shiki. No doubt my most divisive entry on this list. Literally, there are quite a few fans of the cult hit Kara no Kyokai, another series of light novels and later movies produced by Type Moon. Maybe you appreciate that I put its main protagonist on this list at all. Maybe you are a little peeved that I put her two identities so low on it. Or maybe you believe she doesn't belong on here at all, considering, well, neither Assassin or Saber Shiki are exceptionally good when compared to other servants who didn't make this list. But who cares about all that? Why is Shiki even here? Well, I'm gonna start with the most obvious reason. Availability. As of the current point in the JP server, Assassin Shiki has only been made available one time. The one and only time that the Kara no Kyokai collaborative event has occurred, between late February and early March. And I honestly believe this version's the better of the two. At least Saber Shiki was available as a possible role during the following year's New Year gacha with the release of Minamoto Musashi, except, well, Saber Shiki is basically just a weaker Assassin Shiki. But Saber Shiki is a 5-star, and Assassin Shiki is a 4-star. How can this be? I'll make my case really quick, since this entry's gonna get a little complex, with two interesting characters to explain. Okay, gotta breathe for this one. Assassin Shiki is an arts-based assassin with a deck comprised of 2 arts cards and an arts noble phantasm. Although there will be many more of these from Assassin Emiya onward who are arguably better, Assassin Shiki is 2 months ahead of them at minimum, and very unique in that regard. She's also capable of causing a lot of instant death through that single target arts MP she has, which starts with a 100% chance of catching said sudden case of death, only lowered by the death resist of the targeted enemy, and can actually be increased with overcharge. On its own, that is incredibly superior to, say, the later released Hassan of Serenity, or even Lancer Skatach, who both also feature instant death capable of noble phantasms, with a mere base percentage of 60% for instant death. But Assassin Shiki can further increase the chances of her 100% chance, with undoubtedly her best skill, Mystic Eyes of Death Perception A, which lowers the target's niggling death resist I mentioned by a whopping starting percentage of 80%, and it increases her arts performance and grants her ignore invincibility for 1 turn on top of that. And that's just about where my major praises end. At the very least, her remaining skills are solid, with Mind's Eye Fake A granting evade, and the pseudo-interesting skill Yin Yang B, which is just a small NP gauge increase that actually takes away from her already low HP as a demerit. Still, that's fine. She's focused on being that arts assassin and launching that insta-kill NP, despite her oddly average NP gain. Her Bondcraft Essence also increases her instant death chances by another 30%. Yeah, she's kinda crazy at her highest levels. So, take everything I just explained to you about Assassin Shiki and make it significantly more unexciting. How? Well, this is Saber Shiki now, who, from a first glance, actually seems kind of crazy herself. An arts-based deck with an offensive arts noble phantasm that is capable of instant death and hits every member of the enemy party all at once. And she also shares the Mystic Eyes of Death perception skill at C rank, with a completely average 60% chance to kill on her NP. What's worse, unlike Assassin Shiki, who is an event servant and basically handed to you at NP5 for completing her event, thus giving you the chance to overcharge her more consistently, thus increasing her chance to insta-kill, Saber Shiki is a 5-star rate-up target, and most players are unlikely to snag even 1 copy of her from their rolls, much less get multiple copies to reach the higher NP stages. Not to mention, her 2nd and 3rd skill, which provided decent support to Assassin Shiki, are instead an attack boost and HP recovery on Saber Shiki, respectively. And if Saber Shiki's instant death doesn't work out, she's gonna need that attack boost too, even if it isn't particularly good, considering just how jarringly low her max base attack is compared to her overwhelming amount of HP. And the HP recovery itself, while actually good on any other servant, steals NP gauge away from this arts-based servant. Girl, do you even need it with that much HP anyway? Like, at that point, just have guts. All of her passive skills are interesting, but not as focused as Assassin Shiki's presence concealment with independent action. And her Bondcraft Essence, arts performance boost for all party members by 15%. Completely generic. So is she the worst 5-star then? Sheesh. Of course not. Otherwise, she wouldn't even be on this list with Assassin Shiki. Definitely take part in the Kara no Kyokai event for Assassin Shiki, but only roll for Saber Shiki if you're dedicated to completing your collection or fulfilling your love for the character, because you will likely never get another chance. Whew! There, I'm done. Moving on. I swear, the other entries won't be nearly as drawn out. I promise. Number 9. Archer. Ishtar. I had a difficult time deciding to keep Ishtar on this list because of how straightforward and basic she is, but she is branded as limited and still undeniably impressive without having nearly any flaws. Fitting for a goddess of beauty. And this goddess pseudo-servant is appropriately statistically the strongest archer in the game. And while Gilgamesh and Arjuna may inch her out by a minuscule amount of attack points, she wields quite a higher HP value, making her total stats come out ahead. Ishtar also simply has a better deck. Quick, Arts, Arts, Buster, Buster. With better hit counts where they're needed. 4 hits on Quick, 4 hits on Arts, 1 hit on Buster, and 7 hits on Extra Attack. All of her skills are devoted to either boosting her attack, in the case of her first and third skills, or boosting her NP gauge, as with her second skill. To vaporize all enemies with an anti-mountain Buster Noble Phantasm that actually boosts her Buster effectiveness for the turn before she fires it off. And her Bond CE is one of the best in the game, if you ask me. An additional 20% Buster boost on everybody. Her passive skill, Core of the Goddess B, even guarantees a relatively solid tacked-on 225 damage for every single hit she performs. Yes, her briefly mentioned third skill, Mana Burst Jewel A, does require you to wait a turn upon activation, and her briefly mentioned second skill, Radiant Gleaming Crown A, does only have an 80% chance to provide additional invincibility and or ignore invincibility. See Lancer Skatok's Wisdom of Dunscaith A+, for a similar example. These are both small downsides that I think are meant to balance her out with a bit of skill and chance involved respectively, and they do keep her from reaching any higher on this list. On the bright side though, unlike everyone else on this list, she has been made available in no less than 3 separate solo gachas up to this point, alongside the New Year gacha, which Saber Shiki is also made available, so don't worry if you need to build up some funds to pull her out. She won't do much for supporting your team as a whole, Masters, but whatever she hits, she destroys. And if you needed any more incentive to roll for her, yes, she is in fact actually Rin Tosaka. Well, I mean, it's her actual body anyway, there's just somebody else inside of her, named Ishtar, who is also absurdly hot. Defenseless anus. Excuse me. Number 8. Lancer. Brynhildr. I will admit, there is a bit of bias here with putting Brynhildr over Ishtar, since the latter is a more focused servant, and the former is one of my personal favorite servants in the game, but consider the gap in potency between these two to be rather slim compared to the gap between the Shikis and Ishtar. Brynhildr also features a few more apparent disadvantages than Ishtar's couple of strange skill offsets, but she's balanced out by some rather unique upsides. For example, Brynhildr's deck and hit count is rather poor and forgettably standard. 3 hits on 2 quick cards, 2 hits on the single arts card, 1 lone hit on her 2 buster cards, and 5 hits on her extra attack. But her NP gain percentage for her attacks is incredibly high, sitting at 1.07%. Her star generation percentage is similarly staggering at 12.2%. To understand this better, this puts her at a near identical status in regards to sheer numbers as Lancer Ultria Pendragon, who is all about spamming her NP despite her unsuitable deck. And like Lancer Ultria Pendragon, she also features the passive skill Riding A to boost her quick card's performance by an additional 10%. So Brynhildr is going to produce a fine amount of critical stars for someone who doesn't feature a ton of hits, and her NP gain could definitely be worse too. But this Armored Angel's true strengths lie in her active skills and Noble Phantasm, a single target buster attack that also increases the entire party's critical star generation by 30% for 3 whole turns. And I'd be remiss to mention that much like Gilgamesh's Enuma Elish, Brynhildr's NP deals an additional 150% or more special damage to any target carrying the Brynhildr's Beloved trait, a trait that applies to nearly every single male servant in the game. So if her NP gain is still not good enough for you, this might be the reason why DW made it so. And this works in tandem with 2 of her skills in particular. Mana Burst Flame A, which not only increases her buster performance for the turn, but also her NP damage as well, and Hero's Bridesmaid C, a targetable critical star absorption skill that also significantly recovers the target's HP. Indeed, I said the second one is targetable. So what we have here is a crit-based servant who wants to share her based crit base with everybody else. Now finally, Waver's targetable critical strength boost will have a proper companion, and you will only ever be able to obtain this companion one time. Yeah, Brynhildr gets 1 solo gacha, and she isn't part of another single gacha until over a year and a half later. Nope, no New Year's gacha gonna give her to you this time, not like Saber Shiki, not like Ishtar, and this is the primary reason why I put her over Ishtar. Fittingly, our icy solitary romantic leads a cold, lonely existence among fake Grand Order gacha pools. Allow me to shed a tear for her. Number 7. Saber. Nedoh Claudius. Bride. True, she doesn't have a targetable critical star absorption skill. No. Instead, she has 3 different targetable skills. 3. First skill grants NP gain to the target, starting at a massive 35% boost for 3 turns at just level 1. Second skill increases both the target's attack and star generation by 30% for each of the 3 turns, and again, that's just at level 1. Third skill gives healing and a defense boost, which is relatively small, but at least your man won't be losing as much HP next turn. And don't let me stop now, because I still have to mention her single target Arts Noble Phantasm. That's right, she's an arts-based Saber, who not only deals massive damage, but also lowers the targeted enemy's defense and chance of scoring a critical hit for 5 whole turns after getting struck by 20% or more. Oh, and she deals burn damage too. I can be a cute anime girl as well! As exciting as this all is, though, I don't personally like her more than Brynhildr, but I can recognize that she's more consistent as a supportive team member and damage dealer. It's the lore, really. It doesn't make much sense to me why she's considered so damn strong. First Bride, then Caster. How is she this strong? Anyway, she is also featured in a few more gacha banners than Bryn, so you'll have more chances to make her your waifu, Masters. Oh, that's why. It's because waifu. Yeah, now it all makes sense. Number 6. Berserker Minamoto no Yorimitsu. Oh boy, following up one waifu gender bend with another waifu gender bend. I do like this spooky mama a lot more than Nedoh, though, especially since Raiko here probably deserves to be a higher rank limited servant a hell of a lot more than Nedoh does. This historical demon slayer is also, in my opinion, the best wave clearer in the game, a testament I give to the fact that she is not built like most berserkers from the ground up. Her deck wields 2 arts cards, one of which replacing the usual 3rd buster card that nearly every other berserker has. They come with 4 hits, just over the average 2 hits, and even her single quick card is packed with a solid 3 hits affected by passive skill riding A+, by the way, as opposed to the usual 2 or 3 that you'll find on most berserkers who don't share a riding skill. And then there's her extra attack with another 5 hits to top it all off. This woman clearly isn't just whacking a stick at your enemies like the closest thing to a quick-based berserker Lancelot. So if you manage to get off the optimal brave chain with her being arts quick, that's where the true magic happens, and why you'll be calling her mommy too from now on. Her area of effect Buster Noble Phantasm is absolutely no joke. Not only can she still bust her brave chain with it on her own, but her skills just outright release the beast. After earning all of those critical stars from her relatively DPS quick and arts cards, she will use her first skill to gather them all up to herself and share them with no one by a whopping 3,000%! Oh my god! Then she'll give herself a massive Buster performance boost with Mana Burst. And lastly, remember how I called her a Demon Slayer? Mystic Slayer A, granting a 30% power boost against all demon targets. And then stack an additional 30% against any and all Sky or Earth servants. Because why not? Nothing escapes Mama's sight. Combine that with the strongest Madness enhancement in the game and Divinity C, and dear lord, I haven't even mentioned the cute add-on to her Noble Phantasm yet. Yeah, it grants an increased critical star drop rate right before she attacks. So enjoy a substantial pool of crit stars next turn too, which she will be standing in regardless of enemy survival because her Mana Burst also grants her evasion for the turn as well. Welcome to the first real DPS berserker Fate Grand Order has to offer, and she's a fucking monster. A monster mama. Best monster mama. Number 5. Berserker Kuhu Altar. Let me level with you here. No matter how strong or unique of a berserker you might have, and as much as I love Mama Raiko, there is no denying that absolutely anyone watching this who has played the JP server saw this coming. No denying it. No denying it whatsoever. Kuhu Altar will outlive any berserker in the game against just about any enemy you put in front of him, and deal the most damage back in return with his single target Buster Noble Phantasm. He has Frenzy of Spirits A, to decrease the attack of all enemies and even their chance to score a critical hit for 3 turns. As a callback to his original 3-star form, he shares protection from arrows, granting him evasion for 2 hits rather than just 1 turn. And it increases his defense. And then there's Battle Continuation A, giving him guts, just in case you might be scared for him. And you shouldn't be. In case you doubted his raw strength as a berserker, in case the single target Buster Noble Phantasm didn't tip you off, allow me to inform you that he has the highest attack stat among all berserkers so far with 12,805 at base. maximum, giving him the second highest attack of any servant in the game. This man is very straightforward, but he just won't die. And lucky for everyone, he isn't even limited. Nope, just story locked once E Pluribus Unum chapter comes after London, which is honestly the only reason he isn't any higher on this list. He's just statistically not as hard to get. Number 4. All Summer Servants. What? It's hot chicks in bikinis. What more do you need? I'm moving on. Number 3. Okay, I won't do that to you, I'm sorry. No, they're much, much, much better than just hot chicks in bikinis, trust me. I won't go explaining every single one of them in great detail like previous entries, so don't go thinking that I'm just gonna, make another really super drawn-out Shiki entry. There are many summer servants, and even half of the 4 stars are absolutely worth your quartz. I'll sum them up like this. Archer Altria is a fantastic arts-based NP spammer with a single target Noble Phantasm, and trust me, you will be spamming this Noble Phantasm very easily, and she will save your ass on many occasions because of it. Her NP Gade is just too good, and she deals a ton of damage thanks to her own buffs, as well as when paired with Tamamo, both of them. Lancer Tamamo is just one of the best 5-star servants in the game, which feels greatly biased considering how irreplaceable Caster Tamamo is, even after a certain someone gets released. But for real, it's true. Lancer Tamamo is a staple, just as much as her Caster counterpart, so go on, roll for her. Do it! Then there's the 4 stars. Ruler Martha is all I should have to say for why you need to get her. She's a ruler, and only a 4-star. A 4-star 1-punch Dragon Bully ruler, who might also be part of the Joestar bloodline. Also, she's Martha! And she's fucking hot! And last worth mentioning is always the best, the cutest, the loveliest of all, Lancer Kiyohime, with Madness Enhancement EX, just like Raikou, on a Lancer, with the capability to Buster Brave Chain her Buster Noble Phantasm. Need I say more? I love you, Kiyohi! I'm not gonna say Ryder Mordred or Caster Marie Antoinette are bad, but they don't really stand up to the other entries on this list, even amongst the other competitors in their own gacha. They're cool, just not busted, to say the least. But let this entry get across. As much of a joke as these versions of popular waifus might seem, Delightworks doesn't screw around and make them a joke to use. You will only be able to obtain them during the summer events, and you will get your quartz worth and then some. Number 3. Archer. Chloe von Einsberg.
What? That chocololly lesbian from the Prisma Alias series? I'm going to go to jail if I ever have to use her!
Well, what if I told you that she's actually, to this very day, one of the best and rarest servants in the game? The same as Assassin Shiki, she is an event servant with only one single release, and never seen again, much like your time in jail. And she is one of the best NP spammers in the game, on par with even Archer Altria if this little girl was actually ever given the 5-star treatment. She wields a stunning hit count, has an extremely suitable deck consisting of Quick Arts Buster, a single target arts-based Noble Phantasm with its own strong hit count and sure hit applied, and skills that are entirely focused on boosting her performance. All of her performance, in fact. Mine's I Fake B for evasion and increased crit strength, Projection B, which greatly increases the performance of all of her cards for 1 turn, and the hilariously named Kiss Demon B, which increases both her NP gauge by a base 30% and critical star drop rate for 3 turns. Now, if only she had the territory creation passive skill, I'd be losing my fucking mind. She's basically what Archer Emiya always should have been, and as I said earlier, you will only ever get her 1 time and 1 time only. And even if you prefer Archer Altria, I think I might orgasm at the thought of putting these two together, especially since, keep in mind, they're both archers, who primarily carry swords. Of course the archer class is made up of archers. Number 2. Avenger Jean Alter. Allow me to introduce you to the strongest offensive servant in all of Fate Grand Order. Berserkers weep at the sight of her, this saint-turned-dragon witch, for she is no longer the mildly amusing Caster Jill wet dream that you used to know. No, she'll be your wet dream if the internet is anything to go by. She took on all of the training in Purgatory that she promised she would, so much so that she comes back as a brand new class with a bitchin' cape, crazy new skill set, and the highest attack point value of any servant in the game ever. So high, in fact, that can only be compared to the unplayable beast class that you meet way later in the game, because spoilers! So of course, let's break her down. Without even looking into her cards or active skills yet, Jean Alter has some strong NP gain, which lies rooted in her traits as an Avenger. In fact, the aptly named Avenger B raises her NP gain from getting hit by enemies from an already strong 5% by an additional 18% rate, which is insane levels of NP gain. On top of that, her other passive, Self-Replenishment Magic A+, grants her 4% to the NP gauge itself after every single turn. And what is this all in service for? A single target Buster Noble Phantasm that grants a buff ceiling on its target for 1 turn. Should it even live past the god-tier damage it will have to endure. Of course, she could form a Buster Brave Chan on top of that, because what hopeful damage dealer wouldn't? However, despite a high amount of hits on her extra attack, she only possesses a single quick card, so dropping critical stars is not quite what she's built for. But, ironically enough, she can certainly absorb them and deal great amounts of damage with any stars thanks to Self-Modification EX, which is further enhanced by her third passive skill, Oblivion Correction A. She also wields her own unique Charisma-esque skill, fittingly titled Dragon Witch EX, which increases the party's attack and stacks an additional attack buff to any dragon trait allies, which, funny enough, includes most of the other Saber faces, like Altria Alter, much to her chagrin, I'm sure. And lastly, there's Ephemeral Dream A, which greatly boosts her Buster performance for 1 turn and grants her invincibility at the mere cost of 1000 HP from herself. Though, interestingly, it should be noted that she cannot actually kill herself from using this skill. She will never go below 1 HP from it, so there's comfort in that, I suppose. Now, at this point, besides the overwhelming power she holds, all of this might sound rather passé compared to the others on this list who have cool, unique abilities and novelty uses. She's still the biggest heavy hitter to build a team around, but not self-sustaining enough to where it doesn't matter who you team her with. However, that's where Jean Alter features her own rare novelty. Not in a skill or ability, it's a whole class, the Avenger class, that sets her apart. Avengers are the only class in the game besides Berserkers who are strong against the Ruler class, and unlike Berserkers who only deal an extra half damage against them, Avengers deal straight double damage. But a bit more consistent and relevant than that, Avengers are also resistant to Beast class enemies and Demon Pillars. All other classes, save for Berserkers of course, only deal normal damage to Avengers. And Avengers in a raw punching contest are going to win out every time. Jean Alter up to this point is one of only 2 5-star Avengers in the entire game, and only 1 of 5 Avengers in total. It should be a no-brainer that having at least 1 of every class in your Chaldea is important, and I can't recommend Jean more as the target for your St. Quartz. She may be crazy, and she may be very evil, but I'm sure you can find it deep inside your heart, which is probably weeping because you aren't getting most of the 5 stars you actually want, to spend every penny of your wallet away on her. If you aren't choosing to wait for my number 1 entrant, that is. Because yes, of course she's limited, and waifus are very expensive, and the world is round, and the sky is up, and trees produce oxygen. I could go on, but I won't. Number 1. Alright, enough with the cool voice. Say it with me now in 3, 2, 1. Merlin! Yes, it's Merlin, everybody. Of course it's Merlin. It was always gonna be Merlin. While Jean Alter still exists in a realm still bound by rules and understanding, Merlin does not. His skills are the most overpowered a game designer could feasibly devise with 0 drawback. His noble phantasm is so quick to spam and so outrageously stackable that he makes NP gain a topic of uproarious laughter, all while fitting perfectly in just about every single team composition you as a master could possibly concoct. He single-handedly makes every servant significantly better by his mere presence. He himself is a thing of legend in this community to the point that if you don't own your own Merlin, the fact that you will be forever chained to your friend's Merlin as constant support has become a permanent running joke across the interwebs. Merlin may have the potential to be presented the honor of Grand Caster within Fate lore, but within the gameplay of Fate Grand Order, he has already long held that title, no question about it. Pair him with Caster Tamamo and Waver, and I'm almost certain you will never lose a single fight ever again. Should you know what you're doing, I firmly believe you will become outright invincible. He is the one male servant I guarantee you will see making as much money for Delightworks and Aniplex as any top-tier waifu, and he has only appeared in 2 separate gachas up to this point, each of them a year apart. So, if you haven't spent everything on Jean Alter, get that savings fund ready to go, because you will likely need more than luck to catch Merlin. It's been a pleasure, fellow masters. Until we meet again, this has been the voice of St. Quartz, advising that, while I want you to spend your St. Quartz, you should know who you're spending it all on. Knowledge is power.